Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Chris, and today we're going to do a topic on extrinsic goods and intrinsic goods. Extrinsic goods are things that are good for the sake of some other good, and intrinsic goods are goods that are good for their own sake. Some examples that we can look at to determine which is which is consider some physical goods that we value. Some of these can be. We can start very simply with a scenario of you're at the grocery store, you want to get a Coke and a candy bar. The question is, why do you want that? What is it that you're aiming for with something? Because you would typically call something like a dessert or candy good for something, or we might say, something is a good meal or a good candy bar or a good treat. The question is why? Why do we call that good?
For a lot of people, it would just be to get the sugar rush, the energy, be it short, but it's still energy. And as some people say, feed the inner child.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some good that candy bar in this example is leading towards. So energy. So, okay, why do we want short-term energy? So we can just keep asking this question of why, and we hope that we arrive at something that's good for its own sake. So why do we want more energy? Or short-term bursts of energy?
To be productive.
To be productive, okay.
To not fall asleep while we're driving.
Yes, so to avoid some harm, and we'll get at to why avoiding harm is an extrinsic good later. Yes, to be productive. So the question is, why do we want to be more productive?
To get a project done.
Yes. So we want to get a project done. Okay, why do we want to get the project done?
And we'll get a bad grade. I don't know. I'm thinking it's
it might be grade. I mean, you can end up tracing grades, and why do you want a college education? Usually to get some good job, and ultimately to get paid. That seems to be what a lot of goods can arrive at is money. Now, money is itself an extrinsic good. We don't want money just so that we have cash or gold in our hands.
Melt it down like pirates.
Yeah. There might be some like pleasurable experience, playing Scrooge McDuck and jumping into a pile of money. But typically money is not the aim. We want money for the stuff that it gets us. So we start at the candy bar, we get the money, and now we use that money to buy the candy bar, and we get in this whole loop, right? And so did we actually arrive at what we were trying to get is the question. It seems like in that case, no. And so we sort of wonder, okay, why am I not happy with this result? Well, you never got what you actually wanted.
Something that kind of popped in my head. The tail, wow. The snake eating its tail.
Yeah, there's a circular, although in both cases, they're not sustainable, right? You're going to end up eating yourself. You're going to end up destroying a part of yourself. You're not going to arrive at what you actually want. So we can look at that candy bar example in another way. And we buy that candy bar so that because it tastes good, and it provides some sort of pleasurable experience. So the taste and the sugar rush, you might say, both are pleasant. We often crave those experiences. That's the sort of experiences that we aim for. And then the question is, are those extrinsic goods? Is there some reason that we want things that taste good or feel good? And it seems like no. That is itself enough of a reason that we don't need further questions of why. That is the good that is good for its own sake. So we have a very simple example of a simple kind of pleasure that seems to be good for its own sake.
Mm.
So satisfying some pleasant taste, some sort of pleasant feeling. And then we can make it a little bit more complex with some other examples. Let's say we want to read a fiction book or watch a movie, right? It takes a little bit longer to watch a movie and even longer to read a book. So why do we do that?
Some people like to relax with a book or a movie. I know for me personally, I would choose a lot of books that were very analytical, very left brain and informational. And I would purposefully read them at night, and I would fall asleep while reading them.
Yeah, nonfiction books are books that we want to learn something from, offers us something different than a fiction book or a movie would typically offer us. So we're going to arrive at different goods with different things. So for you might say for simpler pleasures like reading a fiction book, we're aiming for some feeling. Maybe we feel connected to the characters. We feel moved by the story. Lots of different feelings can arise.
Like, so an example for me, I've been obsessed with Harry Potter since I was little, since the books came out. I choose to rewatch the movies more than reread the books. One, because I don't have my own copies of the books. But two, it takes a little bit less time.
Yeah, so if we want to in some way maximize the amount of pleasurable experience, we might, and we can do that more in a movie than in a book, we might choose the movie over the book.
Or if you don't have time to indulge yourself in the books that you love.
Oftentimes management comes down to what positive experiences do we prefer over others. So if there's some much greater positive experience that we can get by having more money, and that requires being more productive, and that requires energy, and that energy requires some sacrifice in consuming material, then we'll do that instead of reading a lot of books or watching a lot of movies. Another example is power. We can think of people who want to exert some control over others, or they want to make the decisions in a society or in their community. That requires some amount of power. And you get this typically with tyrants in the most extreme cases, where the tyrant will seek power for its own sake. And the problem is that it's very similar to the candy bar cycle. You seek the candy bar to go through this whole cycle and then wind up back where you were, and the tyrant seeks power and then just seeks more power and seeks more power, and they never actually arrive at what they actually want.
Even social media has that cycle, unfortunately.
Yeah, so influence is a bit of a softer kind of power, but influence works in a lot of the same way. We want power and we want influence for validation, for security, a sense of security,
personal gain.
Personal gain sort of goes back to money, right? So extrinsic goods, right, can lead to other extrinsic goods. It can lead to having more access to pleasantries, having being able to help somebody in need, being able to help somebody that you care about.
That definitely goes more towards the utilitarian.
Yes. So, so the tribal and the utilitarian perspectives are definitely going to, care about others, sort of by definition. But power, like these other extrinsic goods, will usually end up making somebody less and less secure the more that they get it. And that's really the opposite of what you want with power. So you end up losing the good in seeking this sort of false good, this extrinsic good, and never arriving at where you wanted.
Feels more superficial too. Good, rather than more. I don't know how to describe it. A good with more substance.
Yeah, and I would say that the substance lies in the intrinsic good. That's where it's actually at. And if you never arrive there, then there's no substance.
True.
It's just extrinsic goods relating to other extrinsic goods. And to say that there is substance is a fairly, it's an anti-existential claim. The existentialists will often claim, there isn't an actual value that exists. You have to make it up. The problem is that in making it up, you just arrive at more extrinsic goods, and you never actually get what you want. You never actually get at what you value.
I think a lot of people also kind of see what other people do as extrinsic rather than intrinsic, partially because they're not seeing the whole picture, but partially because they're also devaluing the individual giving the quote-unquote good too.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we have different values, if we have a different set of knowledge, we're not going to understand somebody else if they are in fact seeking some intrinsic good. But I think it happens far more often that we keep entering these cycles of extrinsic goods, and then we sort of wonder, why aren't we happy? Why don't we have a meaningful life or a sense of fulfillment? Well, you never actually got there. And so, one of the points of this episode is to point out, hey, there is some point to arrive at. And that point is something like a set of experiences that we consider good for their own sake. So, simple pleasures that we can get from a candy bar, or pleasant experiences that we can have using our money for all sorts of things. Maybe a nice vacation, or a pleasant home to live in. Think of the comforts and the joys of life, right? These are all positive experiences.
Now, can these positive experiences stem from growth mindset, not just comfort?
Could you explain growth mindset a little bit more?
It's kind of like extrinsic versus intrinsic. Extrinsic is how I'm seeing it, buying a house that makes you feel comfortable. Intrinsic is incorporating people that you care about in the house to benefit not just you, but other people.
So this won't be an extrinsic versus intrinsic distinction. This would be more egoist versus tribal or utilitarian perspective.
Good to know. Okay.
So if we want to maximize the good, if we want as much intrinsic good as we possibly can have and can generate, we're going to want to do that for as many people as possible. There's only so much good you can generate for yourself. A multi-billionaire, right? All of that money, all that wealth is not going to. You reach a certain ceiling as to how much good that's going to do for you. At a certain point, all of that value is only going to be worth anything after a certain point if it's spent on others. So yeah, if you value intrinsic goods for their own sake, like as a utilitarian would, yes, we're going to want to spread that wealth around in a way. But comfort, a comfortable couch, hopefully a pleasant video to watch. These are, at least the feeling is good for its own sake. The video, YouTube,
social media.
I mean, all of these sort of physical things, they're extrinsic goods. They're used to get something else.